Tony Kurre Radio. My head's in Mississippi. My heart's right here in Birmingham, though. Speaking of ZZ Top, Austin Hanks of Billy Gibbons' Big Bad Blues Band is going to join us again at noon and 8 with a brand new show today. Noon and 8 right here. It's called Blues Almighty. I love this show. It's fantastic. Check it out. Damon Johnson's show, an encore of that show. His lovely bride, Linda, was on last Friday to do our top butt rock bands. And then we changed it up to hair metal bands because she didn't really like the word butt rock. I thought it was like gay rockers, but butt rock is not gay rockers. It's hair bands that kind of had a limited window of success, but they blew it out while they had the chance, and they got it done. We got some Skid Row, Faster Pussycat, Motley Crue, bands like that. We'll get after it a little bit later on tomorrow from noon to 8. All right, so my radio partner, Dr. Josh Klapow, whom I've done a show with 6 or 7 years now. Isn't that about right? 6, 7 years?
Oh, yeah, at least in one form or another, yeah.
So we get after it every single morning. Of course, you can hear a replay Monday through Friday between 6 and 8, and then we kind of changed up to Tony Kurre Radio Live. You've been out for a while, and everyone's been wondering where the hell Dr. Josh has been. You're a world traveler. Then you get back, and Omicron, you left at a point in time where Omicron just absolutely reared its ugly head. I quite frankly thought you were going to be pulling a Carnival Cruise Lines. I didn't think you were going to get, I honestly didn't think you were going to get back into the country. I really didn't. I don't know what our deal is to get back in, but I don't think you could probably go back to UK right now. So I know you had that going on. Your son goes to school over in Oxford. You were there with the entire family. So kind of tell everyone where you've been and what's happened since you got back, or share as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, so I agree with you.
According to you, this is a shit show is what this is, right?
This is a shit show, yeah. So we were in the UK for Christmas, visiting my son. Sort of what I call the epic Klapow adventure. Think a little bit like Christmas Vacation. Sort of. We were everywhere doing everything, and just right towards the end, Omicron was just everywhere, and they were changing at the last minute. They were doing a lot of changes on criteria about when you could fly out and not, and literally down to maybe the day before, Tony, they were going to make announcements about whether they were going to shut the whole country down. I mean, we were just kind of waiting. We snuck our asses out there after 3 PCRs, got on the plane, got home.
By the way, what did you spend on PCR test?
Oh my God. So here's the thing with PCR tests. If you're sick, or if you're a healthcare professional, for the most part in this country, or if you've been directly exposed, they're covered. You don't have to pay for them. But for travel purposes, which kind of makes sense, I guess, you have to pay for them. So over here, they're about $100 a pop. And we had 3 going over. Over there, you have 2 kinds of PCRs. You have the nationally registered PCR. So they take your test and it's got to go to a national database because they keep track in the UK of all PCRs. Those can take up to 3 days. Then they have the if you want it quickly one, which goes to a different lab, and that can go 24 hours. We didn't understand the difference between the two. So we had our 3-day one as required. That was about $120 a pop. Then we had to go to a hotel that required a PCR within 48 hours. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have those. So literally they stuck the thing back in our nose again, paid again. And so that dropped about $600 right there within 30 seconds of having our nose swabbed.
Nice.
So I'm trying to meet like you. I'm trying to stay, it's all good. And then we get home and everything's good. We're all good. We're all safe, like you thought it. And come to find out 2 weeks later, or a week and a half later, my son tested positive Omicron and he's triple vaccinated. And, so he's isolating. My daughter tests positive, not right after we got back. She's isolating. And then, as you know, Jules had some abdominal surgery, and so she can't be exposed. It's just, it's all good, man. So I love you, brother, and been listening. And trying to do my best, you know.
I hear you. We're huge over in the UK. Right now
I know.
right now we got a couple hundred people listening. I don't know. It's crazy because whenever we start, we were like, I don't know, in 37 different cities last night, and when we start showing up, it's like it only takes one or two people. They tell a couple people, and it just explodes, and it's super exciting to see. With the Omicron thing, too, we had Mark Ingram, the UAB athletic director. By the way, I just posted the podcast on my Twitter page, and I'll post it on Facebook and Instagram a little bit later on. But he came on, and he was kind of cranky. And he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. College football, we just had the big old hoorah. Alabama lost. Not a good thing, obviously, for Bama fans. Congratulations to Georgia. But we were talking about expansion, the NIL, welfare and health and safety, automatic bids, which bowls get which teams, what's going on. And so he had this chip on his shoulder that's got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where I felt like he was a mule by the end of our conversation. You can listen to that. But he said something very interesting at the end because we didn't talk about, we always talk about safety protocols and how are they playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And, this is the first year in 2 years that we've got full houses, people watching basketball games again. UAB's got FIU later on tonight. I may go down there for a little bit. But he's like, listen, I'm just telling you right now, no one should toot their horn and say, I haven't had it yet, because he said, I will bet that most of us have had it. We just didn't know it. And it's human nature for us. We don't want to have the inconvenience of having, and I know this is not the right thing, and I know how you feel about this, but not everyone's in your shoes. A lot of people can't take work off. We got to do things. We got to be around our kids. We're constantly just trying to muddle our way through this new normalcy. But he's like, I can promise you, because a lot of people were saying as recently as 3 or 4 months ago, I'm pretty sure I had it last November. It was just no big deal, so I didn't say anything to anybody, and I just didn't get tested, whether I couldn't find a test or didn't want to get tested because I didn't want to know. A lot of people aren't getting tested because they don't want to know. And if they feel like they're asymptomatic and maybe they got a little bit of a runny nose, they're not going to say anything. And so and I think more and more people, it's human nature to be like that. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I think a lot of people out there, I would bet if you asked 100 people right now, do you think, and these are not people that have tested positively, officially tested positive with a test, do you think you've had COVID? I would bet you 80% I would say probably. And and so, I mean, that's what we got. This variant is incredibly contagious. You know that. And so, we're getting to a point now where, you better be super careful about saying, well, I've never got it. Just chances
I totally agree. I mean, listen, Fauci was quoted the other day as saying, I'm just reading the quote.
Has he had it, by the way? Has Fauci had it?
I don't know, but he did say just about everybody will eventually be affected with the Omicron variant of coronavirus. And see, here's the thing for me, and you and I haven't talked much. I have had a sort of a mind shift. I've been triple vaccinated. All my kids have. Everybody I know and I socialize with have. Those of us and I haven't had it yet. But those people who've gotten it, who've been triple vaccinated, it's somewhere between a sinus infection for the most part and maybe a little bit like a flu, right? And then they bounce back. And so that's the thing. At this point, I'm like you. At this point, had I not been in a situation where I needed to be careful because my wife's just had surgery, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. But I've been triple vaccinated. And I think the thing that is incumbent on all of us, besides the vaccination, which just protects other people, but it'll protect you, is, if you've been exposed, the idea is after about 5 days, you should keep alone for about 5 days, and you should test because, I heard you talking about the church
If
thing.
You can find one, Josh. I mean, I was at Walgreens yesterday.
Yeah,
I was at Walgreens yesterday, and the pharmacist, and I haven't shared this story with you. The pharmacist at Walgreens yesterday was shutting the store down at 11:30. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm done. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. And I was like, what?
Quit?
He was quitting. And, of course, I had some meds to pick up. I said, dude, can you fill these real quick before you go? And he's like, sure, Tone. I knew who he was. He's like, I got one guy here. He goes, everyone's sick, or people are saying they're sick, People aren't calling. People don't even calling anymore. They're just not showing up. And he's like, I don't know who's going to show up anymore. He goes, I'm here every single day. I don't know if I've had it or not. I don't really care, but I've got a job to do. He said, I'm 200 prescriptions behind. He goes, and there's just no bodies to do it. I said, what do they what do they pay here? I'll come help you out. And he goes, you have to call corporate. And I said, so anyway, can continue. But I mean, that's how crazy it's gotten.
Well, but I think that's psychologically where we're at this really interesting and important point. The cool thing about Omicron is it's not taking you out unless, you're compromised. You've got other conditions. I've got a couple of friends, frankly, who've got chronic conditions, who got it. And one of their fathers was on dialysis, for God's sakes, but he'd been triple vaccinated. He was okay. So here's the thing. You're right. It's starting to look more and more like the common cold. But the thing I do still think is important is the more that we have people vaccinated, we're still at about 48% in this state, then the more that it becomes less of a problem. And you're right. You know me, I'm a germaphobe, but at this point, dude, I've had enough. I'm ready. Like, give it to me. I'm taking it. I'm good. And that's the part, with you, I know you've got kids. I know your youngest is not vaccinated, right?
She is vaccinated. She got her first. No, she's getting her second on the 27th. Yeah.
That was it. And I don't want to see, this is how I think about it. For my friends who are running businesses, who are single parents, who have got to be on top of their game, I don't want to be the one to take them out.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why I'm careful. But but I'm sick of it, dude. I'm like.
Well, the other thing is, I think it's interesting. And again, I think a lot of people out there, if you got a sniffle, and you're not feeling quite right, but you're not, you don't feel horrible. You don't have the flu-like symptoms, or you just got a runny nose, or maybe you have a little bit of. I had one last week. I had a little sinus thing going on, and I thought, okay.
Yeah.
In that particular case, so I'm not deemed selfish. And I want to continue to live and make any inconveniences for me as less as I possibly can. I do mask up a lot more. I was at church on Sunday, and I was coughing out in the parking lot, and I sneezed a couple times, and I'm thinking, and so I thought, okay, so what I did is I sat as far away from everyone else as I possibly could do with a mask on, and I sat in the back of church because I knew if I sat in a pew, someone would sit next to me, and God forbid, the last thing you want to flip and do right now is cough or sneeze in a crowd. You just don't want to do it. I mean, it's because people look at you like, get the hell out of here, and I did not, and I had a trickle of snot running down the back of my throat right during the homily, and I thought, man, if I cough, the place is going to spread because that's not normal. You don't go to 5 or 6 masses and you may hear one sneeze over the course of a month. If you're down there hawking and like that, people are freaking out. You can go watch Joel Osteen for an hour this week. Thanks. So I do everything I can. So if I do feel like, and we see that on bus stops and everywhere, if your kid doesn't feel good, keep them home. I certainly understand that. I do with my children. But from an adult standpoint, I'll do everything I can to stay the hell out of the way for everyone else.
That's it. It's
but this is our new normalcy. A year ago, 2 years ago, we were only allowed to walk one flipping direction in a grocery store.
Yep.
I mean, and a lot of people don't like the fact that the CDC and Fauci keep changing their narrative. Well, we all have to change our narrative because this flipping thing keeps changing its ugly head's face, and we don't know what we're dealing with. And so, but I will tell you this, I don't think we're ever going to shut down again, and we're just going to have to work through it. And God forbid, this guy who prophesies this new variant called Omega, which is not, it doesn't even exist yet, says it's coming out in spring. I hope for God's sakes it doesn't happen. All right, so a couple of things I wanted to get into. Because,
can I ask you a mask question? Because I've had 2 interesting mask questions.
Yeah.
One, the whole sneeze thing, right? Because now it's like you sneeze in public.
Oh, dude, it's horrible, man. Some guy sneezed at Publix yesterday, and we were walking right towards him, and Xavier had the cart, and I diverted. I said, go to the right, and he gave me a look like, you piece of shit. What am I walking over here? I was like, listen, dude, I'm not getting within 12 feet of you. I'm going to go around. Sorry, man. I put my hand up and said, apologize, and he looked at me like I was evil. I'm like, I'm not the one hacking up a lung here.
So that's the one thing. So the question I have, and I have not heard anyone talk about this. Have you ever burped in your mask?
Oh yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a really bad. It's almost as if he somehow is thinking about this. God, see what's happened, and hasn't.
Well, I pull my mask down before I burp.
Oh, see, this
Now
is
I
to
won't.
me.
Now I will not pull my drawers down before I fart.
Well, I was just gonna say it has the feeling of imagine if you were farting in your own face.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel, and that's what I've been walking around with over the last several days.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get off this.
Yeah, I want to ask you, and I don't know how much you've been in the loop here. You were over in the UK, you were over in London, and you shared some wonderful stories about classic rock over there. There's a Rolling Stone shop and all these really cool things. I want you to share that first, and then I want to ask you about David Lee Roth. But just tell me, because
David Lee, is he dead?
he's close.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's close. He's making it sound like he's on the way out. If he would die today, it would not surprise me. I will go that far. I'm being serious.
So yeah, so all right, so real quickly, and I was surprised about this. One of the things I saw, mostly when we were in London, but kind of all over, but mostly in the London area. Obviously, they loved Queen. They loved the Beatles and they loved Rolling Stones. But I saw a ton of Queen stores. So there were stores that had.
Now, you talking the band or the Queen herself?
No, I'm sorry. No, right. Sorry, my bad.
Because when you told me the Queen, I thought you were talking about like the Queen.
Yeah, no. So there's a lot of that. I mean, and there's you can get your trinkets. No, the band. I saw 2 or 3 stores that were dedicated to the band, and they sold everything from music to apparel to collector's items. And look, this is. I mean, obviously Queen is still relevant. But I was very surprised to see storefronts, and these were nice storefronts. This wasn't like just some dude with a stand selling a bunch of stuff. Saw the same thing for the Rolling Stones, and these were kind of higher end, kind of like what you might see around here, like at the Summit, or in a mall. Mm-hmm. And that, and then when I told you when I was at the open markets, tons of like late 70s through mid 80s. Classic rock playing over with a British flair. So a lot of Kinks and a lot of stuff like that, a lot of Queen. But it just goes to show you how relevant this is. And particularly in the UK, where obviously these are their. And I will say this, I heard more of sort of the Stones, the Kinks, Queen than I did the Beatles. I did not hear a ton of Beatles being playing over the loudspeakers at all. And last thing I will tell you, and I sent you this video, warmed my heart because we were there over Christmas. We're in some market. I'm somewhere and I hear the tune. I hear it and I'm like, oh no, you got to be kidding. Round the corner, there's a dude with a guitar and a Santa Claus hat on. Yeah. And what is he playing? Freaking Sweet Home Alabama. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. Talk to any of your listeners, and they all have this story. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, what language they speak. Somebody at some point is going to be playing Sweet Home Alabama, no matter what. And I told the guy I'm from Alabama, and we just had like this connection. It was awesome. That's okay, right. Go ahead. So David Lee Roth.
I thought you were going to tell me he was playing Africa from Toto.
No.
So David Lee Roth is supposed to be having his farewell retirement, right? He has thrown his shoes in. Unbeknownst to a lot of us, we didn't realize he was retiring, and he wasn't his flamboyant, cliche type of David Lee Roth, being absorbent and being self-ego man. He came out and said, I'm retiring, I'm throwing my shoes in, I'm done. That's basically all he said, and I was kind of like, wow. So he was going to do a New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day show at the House of Blues in Las Vegas, which is a perfect fit for him. If he's going to go out, Las Vegas, he is Vegas Dave. It's a perfect fit. And then he said, of course, because of demand, he was adding 5 or 6 more shows. So he had about 15 shows set up at the House of Blues. Then, of course, the day of New Year's Eve, it gets canceled because of Omicron. And then he comes out and says, I just wanted to say that the death of my bandmate, Eddie Van Halen, really put things in perspective, and I'm compelled to share something with you, and that is I have prayed to Eddie to tell him that if he looks in his river mirror, you'll see my face. I'm right behind you. He believed that he was going to be the first member of Eddie Van Halen's band, Van Halen, to die, which I thought was really, really strange. And then he went on to say that his doctors have told him that every time he goes on stage, he's endangering his life, and that he realizes that time's too short and that he just can't take that risk. And so he was wondering if he was going to hang it up at all. He's 67 years old. I posted a video of the last time he sang Jump, which was in March of 2020 when he opened up for Kiss. And listen, it's not very attractive. He can still hit the notes. He looks like a show guy. He looks like he just kind of stands there. He tries to kick his leg a couple of times. He's got that really weird Lee Roth grin he's got, and he's got the flamboyant jacket on. And, the crowd loved it as an opening act. I guess it was great. But he does a lot of Van Halen stuff. And so now I'm wondering, and he just posted a picture, and he actually made the artwork himself. David Lee Roth addresses COVID-related cancellations. His latest artwork, it's this giant-looking frog thing. It's got all these blotches and stuff on it. It says, the daily catastrophe due to an abundance of COVID. He's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to play again. Damon Johnson was on the show last week, and we'll replay it again at noon and 8 o'clock tomorrow. And I asked him expressively about David Lee Roth and his thoughts about it. He's like, man, if we've seen the last of David Lee Roth, it's going to be a super big bummer for the classic rock world. Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, it's easy to, I think it's easy to sort of trash on him and others and go, come on, you're going to be okay, blah, 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 blah. But if you think about what they're doing just as a profession, they love their music and they love to perform, but it is not unreasonable when you're 67 to at least think about that, right? And I know we've not heard of a lot of rockers hanging it up because of COVID, right? It's more been kind of the other way. I can't wait. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Stevie Nicks, talking about I got to get out there basically before I'm dead. That kind of thing. So I've seen this in the corporate world, Tony. I'm seeing a lot of more senior kind of people who have been with a company for 30 years. They're not even the senior executive. They've just been there a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you know what? I'm done. This is too much. And they're calling this the Great Resignation because people can't find jobs and all that kind of stuff. Tony, I'm calling it the Great Awakening. I really believe this. I believe that what it's making people is forcing us to ask ourselves a question. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Do we have to do it? And what do we want to do? Now, and those are simple questions. And it's not crazy to think that someone like David Lee Roth would not be asking those questions, particularly as people are dying. And I don't mean dying from COVID, but we talk about as rockers are dying, like each one is kind of, it's a little bit of a red flag to the ones who exist. I sent you a thing, maybe I did. Life covered, did a thing of Jimmy Buffett, a pirate looks at 75.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God. So, power to David Lee Roth, what are we going to do? Blame him? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And Andrew Luck hung it up from football. And he was 28?
Yeah, he came out and said future shows, and this is future shows when the benefit concerts for Colorado Farm Aid and hospital workers everywhere come up, please call me, he said.
He's curious.
Yeah, he said.
What do you think?
Well, no, I think it's sad, and this is a David Lee Roth. This is Bummer Dave. This is not Diamond Dave. This is not the Dave I'm used to seeing. When he retired, he said, I'm throwing in the shoes. I'm retiring, told the Las Vegas Review-Journal. These are my last shows. I'm not going to explain the statement. The explanation is in a safe. I don't know what that means. But yeah, it's unfortunate. And I think a lot of people, and obviously David Lee Roth fans, for what he is and what he meant to classic rock as we know it. I think it would be a major bummer if we've seen the last of him.
Let's make it a little spicy because you know how we love to do this. Let me make it a little spicy. So on the one hand, I'm asking you two questions. One, do you think this will sort of be an entryway for other rockers to kind of follow suit? I don't mean in mass, but it's almost like a precedent he set, because I'm trying to think of, I can't think of any others off the top of my head who've sort of made this kind of statement. We know ones have been canceled. We know there have been rockers who've gotten COVID and have had to back off, but I haven't heard anyone do this. Yeah. So do you knowing a lot of these people, do you think this gives permission, if you will, to some of them to maybe follow suit?
I don't know. I think it's so independent of who you are, where you are in your life, what you've done. Have you been performing in the past? Do you want to perform again? Some people hate the road. David said it's been a long, great trip, a long, great run, but this kind of music requires the kind of energy that people in their 20s bring. You know what NFL stands for? Not for long. It's similar in rock. I remember the days when we could stand around and say, let's go have a cigarette, and that's what we did. 4 guys having 1 cigarette. I remember those days. They go by fast, so enjoy them while they're in them or while they're in you. It's unfortunate because I've never seen this side of Dave before. He just, he's always been a hopeful kind of guy. He always had a spin on something. And so we're seeing a different side of Dave. All right, so we only have a couple minutes left, and I had one final question. Did you see any wildlife over there? And I'm not talking about wild ladies. I'm talking about animals.
I saw a reindeer.
All right, okay, all right. So
I know we saw wild boar. We saw some wild. I didn't see anything like exotic. We saw hawks they call them kites, and I saw some cows.
All right, so you know where I stand on what's going to end this world, right? It's not going to be a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's not going to be Armageddon. It's not going to be World War III.
No, it's freaking animals.
It's freaking animals, and COVID could be used as an example of that. Correct? I mean, that came from an animal, as far as I know. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So
I did see, we were at a farm and they're like, oh, these cows are really friendly. They were milking cows, really friendly. Just come up slowly and, you can pet their nose. And and one almost took off a deer's hand.
Yeah. And you remember the story I told you about the cows that almost killed the woman, right?
Yes. So go ahead.
So a woman in Scotland last week is driving on a deserted road and she gets lost. And she pulls off the side of the road. Her car breaks down, and she makes a phone call, and she's got cell phone service, and they're trying to find her. They can't figure out where she's gone. So she's decided to go out and hoof it on her own. So she is gone for like 2 days. They can't find her, and then they find her body less than a mile away from her car.
Oh, no.
She is eaten by foxes and badgers. Dude, I'm telling you, man, foxes and badgers. She was 62 years old. She was healthy, didn't have a health worry in the world. She's walking less than a mile away from her car, and her body is ravaged by badgers and stinking foxes. I'm telling you, man.
Didn't we do a story about, what was it, beavers taking someone down?
Yes. No, those were otters.
Their ankles?
Otters.
Oh, otters. I'm sorry. Otters taking people down. Like, what the hell? I'm telling you, because here's the thing. We're going to just play this one. I love this. What I love about doing a show with you is it allows me to take all my psychology and just be super non-scientific and creative with it.
Yes.
If you think about it, this makes total sense because on the one hand, we as the humans, we're being taken out, right? So we got the COVID thing and we're just dropping like flies. We're at each other's throats. We're busy just fighting amongst ourselves and we're sick. And so the animals are like, oh, this is the perfect time, right? This is the time. They're at their weakest point. I would just super quickly. We lost a great biologist he was actually born in Alabama, E.O. Wilson. Mm-hmm. And they asked E.O. Wilson, his statement was he used to study ants. Every animal sort of has their purpose, right, in the ecosystem. And the guy's interview is like, well, what the hell is our purpose?
Really?
What's our purpose in the ecosystem? Because we just seem to screw it up and eat animals and he basically said that originally we weren't supposed to be so populous. We were just going to be one of we were the hominids and there were going to be the other primates and the ants and everything. But then we started eating meat and we kind of took over. And now, and this is where I think it plays in. He's now we're kind of we're curing the herd amongst ourselves, which is really, really scary. So yes, I do believe the animals are taking over, and I do believe that they are waiting for the time when we're most vulnerable, and I think it's now.
I'm glad you're a believer now. I've been trying to tell you this. My daughter, who loves deer, we have deer all over the place in Heatherwood. She's got alophophobia. That is the fear of deer. She is all of a sudden wigging out. She's like, it's weird because I know they're out there and I can't see them. And she said seeing 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even 8 deer is really, really cool. But seeing 30 at one time, which we saw a couple of days ago, she's like, that's freaking me out, man. She goes, I don't like even the does. She used to love deer. She's like, I don't like seeing that many deer anymore. And I'm like, I'm telling you, because my dogs don't go outside a whole lot anymore. And I think I counted like 73 squirrels in my backyard the other day. And I walked out and they didn't run because there's no reason to run anymore. And so they just came up to the deck, and it was not a Snow White moment. Their eyes were red, their teeth were bare, they weren't eating nuts. They just kind of started cropping up on my deck like they wanted to be fed. It scared the shit out of me.
Well, you think throw that all together. We got the deer now. I told you the deer in my backyard. Now they look at me different.
Oh, I know.
Like before,
right?
now it's like, hey, you know what? Screw you.
Yeah.
I know you've been in your house and there's a bunch of us. That's number one. Number two, I'm having the same thing with the squirrels. I come outside, squirrels don't run. Then I got the chipmunks. The chipmunks are even worse because they're like 100 miles an hour all over, and they're getting closer and closer to my house. And then you throw in some birds, like we're screwed.
I know, man. All right, I love you, man. It's great catching up with you. We'll get together next Thursday from 7:30 to 9:30 here on Tony Kurre Radio Live. It's known as the Kurre and Klapow Show. And again, you can hear that between Monday and Friday between 6 and 8. I love you, man. Have yourself a great day. Take care of your lovely bride, all right?
All right, bye.
All right, thank you, bud. There he is, Dr. Josh Klapow, joining us here on Tony Kurre Live right here on Tony Kurre Radio. I love that guy. It's great to catch him. We can talk for like 4 hours, and we'd forget we're even on the radio. I love that.